Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'awuz billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Sadaqallahul azim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this session, we're doing now Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 105. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ما يود الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب ولا المشركين أن ينزل عليكم من خيره من ربكم والله يختص برحمته من يشاء والله يختص برحمته من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم صدق الله العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah, neither those who disbelieve from the people of the scripture nor the polytheists wish that any good should be sent down to you from your Lord. But Allah selects for His mercy whom He wills, and Allah is the possessor of great bounty. So this ayah, which I want to look at today, inshallah, is looking at something which was a kind of a positive from the Bani Israel, but apparently so, but not in reality. And this positivity was that aside from their behavior towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bani Israel would show fake support to the Muslims, wishing them to be given the Torah and follow their ways. So it was like them asking or wanting for the salaf, for the Sahaba, to be from amongst the Bani Israel. And if not, which obviously was not the case, they would hope that they could become followers of the Torah. And what they were implying by that was that if you do that, then you'll do things our way. And if you do things our way, that'll be better for you, because our way is the better way. Our way is the best way. Our way is from Musa alayhi salam. We are the chosen people, and we have the word of God with us. So this was what they wanted, and they said, if only you would, we would give you a lot of respect and consideration, and we would treat you good, and we would support you and help you in what you want to do. And all it takes is for you to follow our way. And it was this kind of well-wishing towards the Salaf, to the Sahaba, that the Bani Israel were trying to make a show of. However, Allah Ta'ala provided for the believers in whatever they lacked from His mercy. So the Sahaba, as we know from their stories and accounts of their personal biographies, let alone as a whole, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala was with them, and they never had anything they were left in need of, except that their love and tawakkul in Allah Ta'ala was the most important thing to them. And anything of the dunya, if they needed it, they knew Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala would provide it. And if they didn't need it, they knew it was just a matter of the nafs, and it wasn't necessary. So they would realign themselves to belief in Allah, subservience to Allah, submission to Allah, tawakkul in Allah Ta'ala. And this was their way of living, which is very I suppose, will be seen as very different and very strange today, because their tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their loyalty, devotion, obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was unquestionable and paramount, and their lives revolved around that. And so nobody could actually shake them. So although this was another strategy of the Bani Israel to win favor with Sahaba, it didn't work. And we know from historical accounts, the Sahaba didn't adopt the Torah. They didn't adopt the ways of the Bani Israel. They didn't go into their systems and their methods of doing things. They remained staunch on the Quran and towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. such to the effect that even there were plots to cause ruin or death for the believers, and these were always turned around to their benefit. One example that comes to mind is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after many attempts, was finally able to get a meeting to arrange a truce and a alliance with the Bani Israel, that they would work together and there would be no hostilities. And they invited Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to a particular place for him to go there and meet with some of the elders, that they would then be able to sign this agreement off. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to this place, sat and waited. But what the actual plan was, that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given specific instruction to go to a specific place and sit in a particular place, position, and what they had planned to do was, there was a wall behind Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and above the wall, a part of a wall of a building, they had some large stone or boulder, and they were going to push that over and let it fall, so that it fell on Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he would be killed by that. But Jibreel alayhi salam was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and told Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to move from that place and go back home. So he did, and then it was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam what was actually going on. So on the one hand, on their side of things, they thought that they could get rid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and be done with their problem. It didn't work. But on the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, they were now aware of the treachery, and this plot was exposed and laid bare for them. So it went to the benefit of the believers, and it didn't go to the benefit of the Bani Israel at all. It just got turned around on them. So this was the way they were. Their main point here being that they wanted the Sahaba to adopt the Bani Israel way, follow the Torah, follow their ways, their methodology, and they would be given good treatment in it, and they would be given fair treatment, and their problems could be resolved through commitment to the Torah, the rulings of the Torah. And it didn't work for the Sahaba. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ما يود الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب ولا المشركين أن ينزل عليكم من خيرهم من ربكم والله يختص برحمته من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. صدق الله العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again says, neither those who disbelieve from the people of the scripture nor the polytheists wish that any good should be sent down to you from your Lord, but Allah selects for his mercy whom he wills, and Allah is the possessor of great bounty. So now what I want to do is look at how the same ayah applies to us, and it's quite interesting what comes from this, specifically for our current conditions. So the lesson here is an important one in the light of current events and others leading up to them. So where we are at the moment is the events that are going on in the Middle East. And when I say the Middle East, we're not just talking about the situation in Palestine. We're not talking about just that alone, but also what is happening in further afield with Lebanon, with and even down far as Sudan, and how it's all growing and encroaching on other Muslim lands, such as Egypt, in time to come. And this is all part of the Greater Israel Project, which is what is being openly spoken of, and by the powers that be. Because it's not just the Israeli government, but the American and the British and other European alliances that are also starting to talk about this, or give a silent commitment and acceptance of it, that this idea of a greater Israel is going to take place. Now, if we look at that and we take what this ayah is teaching us, I want us to understand something, that those who disbelieve and deny Allah Ta'ala and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do not want good for the Ummah, just making fake gestures. So just as in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Bani Israel were not genuine about that. And again, I have to say this in every session because it's spiritually important for us to understand this. When we talk about Bani Israel, we're not talking Bani Israel per se. Every single person amongst the Bani Israel, many were good, many became Sahaba and Sahabiya. Amongst them was one of the Umm al-Mu'minina, one of the wives of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from the Bani Israel. And so this is not the issue at all. What I'm talking about is as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so beautifully and eloquently puts it, that those who do evil and those who do good. And it does not make mention of any race, nation, creed, color, anything at all. Just those who do good and those who do evil. And it's just for the sake of clarity or perspective that I mention, say, Bani Israel or any other country, nation, but it's not the whole. It is only those individuals who actually combined, coming from different nations and civilizations, fall under the group entitled those who do evil. So those who disbelieve and deny Allah Ta'ala and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do not want good for the Ummah. They're just making fake gestures. So in basics, what I mean by that is Muslim to non-Muslim. There is a deep difference, profound difference between a person who in his or her heart is the seeds even of Iman, that they recognize and accept loyalty and belief in Allah Ta'ala as Allah Ta'ala has revealed himself to us in the Quran, that he is one, that he is, wahdahu la sharika lahu, and that he is upon his tawheed. And thereafter, in the Risala of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he is the last prophet, he is a prophet, he is the last prophet, he has brought with him the Quran, and his way, his sunnah is the way of life. Those who accept this, at least this much, even if they are not staunch upon it, there is a big difference even between the most minor of such a person who may be sinful in Islam, neglectful of salah, neglectful of hijab, and neglectful of a commitment to the deen. However, in his or her heart, there is still that undying devotion to the deen, such that was somebody to insult Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the Quran or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their presence, they will become enraged. So that shows something. But nevertheless, other than that, they are sinful or neglectful of salah. Now, even somebody like that and a complete non-Muslim who is aware of Islam but does not wish to accept it, a clear-cut kafir, there is a distinct fundamental difference between the two, and this is something that we need to realize, that if that's the case between even a sinful, neglectful Muslim and the average kafir, non-Muslim, rejecter of Islam, who denies Allah, defies Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if that's the case, then we need to bear this in mind when we're looking at world events and how we, as a people, look to them and try to find help and support from them. I mean, it is these people who are responsible for the events in the world, but they're not truly in charge of them. Allah is in charge of them. Allah is in charge of everything. But it is these people who are responsible for the events in the world. And this is their mess, if you like. And they have made this, and they want to make this because in their minds, Allah doesn't exist. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't exist. So the limits that are within the heart and mind of a Muslim, even a basic Muslim, are not there in their minds. As far as they're concerned, they make it up as they go. As far as they're concerned, they're in control of things. As far as they're concerned, they have the power and the might. When these three things combine in a person or a nation, then there's no stopping their arrogance. I'm not going to say there's no stopping them. Many such nations have risen in the past, and they are no longer here. Not even the remains and decayed, corpses of their people are any longer here. Going all the way back to the people of Ad and Thamud, who were giants. They're not here anymore. We have to dig really deep, literally, just to find some remains of them. But they're not here anymore. So I'm not talking there's no stopping them as a nation, but there's no stopping their arrogance. And their arrogance leads to them to do what they do. And we as a Ummah and as a people have to recognize this, because what they are doing is something that has completely taken us. And I have to ask, when will we learn as an Ummah not to look to them for change or alleviation of our trials? Because this is reminiscent of what the Bani Israeel did at the time of Rasulullah with the Sahaba. They said, follow our ways and you'll solve your problems and we'll treat you right, and you'll make success in life. And that's what's happening today, except they aren't asking us, because most of us are running to them anyway and adopting their ways anyway. For example, protests and appeals in the streets, hundreds, thousands of people walking along, shouting and chanting and so on. Can we give evidence of this anywhere in the time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was here? I mean, they had their problems too. They had opposition, political opposition, military opposition, social opposition. They had opposition. And the systems were unfair to them. The governments were unfair to them. Did they appeal to their governments, to their situation in this manner? No, they did not. Did they adopt their ways, for example, voting or petitioning or signing letters or sending emails or this kind of approach? No, they didn't. So here we are today doing these things, and in the meantime, time passes. And that time is very important, because the time for the person who's suffering, time seems to slow down. A person may suffer only for 5-10 minutes, but in those 5-10 minutes, it feels like a long time. And what we're doing, looking to their systems, to whatever this is, including the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court and so on. I mean, they took so long to compile a case, and the best they could do at the end of that case with these world-class judges is to say that we believe there's plausible possibility or evidence for a genocide. Plausible. That's it. A child on the street could have told you what's going on. A child on the street could have told you just how real it is. But no, and whereas in the meantime, while on all of that happened, that took weeks or months to do, prepare and deliver, in the meantime, how many people lost their lives? How many people became crippled for life? How many people are heartbroken and because they've lost their loved ones in the meantime, while this court was gathering together to deliver this verdict? And then how long it took thereafter for them to come up with, okay, there is some case. And then how long it took thereafter for them to come up with arrest warrants, which can never be enacted upon, because the very countries who signed to the International Court of Justice are now under obligation, and that obligation is not being fulfilled. In fact, the armaments, the arming and the financing is still happening of Israel. That is still continuing. So what is left? So what is the point of this way of us dealing with situations without the Quran? Because that is what is happening. When will we learn as an Ummah not to look to them for change or alleviation of our trials? Oh, and then there comes the argument that, well, this happened and that happened. We did have this success and we did have that success. We did get arrest warrants. We did get, appeals and petitions which changed this person or that person. No, really, if you look at it in terms of tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadir of all things, that He's the one who does all things. It's just a matter of when He does it. Well, we could easily say, just as in the example of when somebody dies, if somebody shoots a person and he dies, yes, that person shot him, but in reality, in absolute reality, it was Allah's decree for that person that his life would end at that point. And that being written before the person was even born. Before that person was even born, that was written for him. So it was almost, well, it was actually irrelevant that the person is shot or not. The life of that person would have ended at that point exactly, which is why in Islam, when someone dies, we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. We belong to Allah and we return to Him. We belong to Him and we are returning to Him or will return to Him. That's what we say. We don't say in that dua that curse the person who did it or get the person who did it or justice for against the person who did it. We don't say anything like that. We say this, whether the person died of an illness, whether the person died in his sleep, whether the person died through murder. So in the same way, we have that there will be things that will happen that Allah Ta'ala will allow, that Allah Ta'ala has decreed, that are positive. However, they are from the decree of Allah Ta'ala, and it may have nothing to do with the method with which we did what we did. Look at another way, the person who wins from the lottery, he wins 1 million and he becomes a millionaire. Now, it was decreed for him to be a millionaire on that particular day. However, the method by which he became a millionaire has now been brought into question because he played the lottery. Had he not done so, he would still have that money coming to him in some other form, and Allah Ta'ala would have blessed that and would have barakah. Instead, He made it a source of curse for him. So here's the same thing for us as an ummah. We are using their systems, and for us, the systems of Islam are there but neglected, overlooked. In Islam, if somebody is being oppressed, then this is a very important thing. For them, time becomes very important. That they, while they're suffering, it feels like a long time, and that suffering has to end. And so Islam, the Deen of Allah, takes that into consideration first and foremost, it seems, such that there is an urgency in what you do, and the thing that you do has to be so effective that the suffering of that person immediately stops. It stops within moments or it stops within hours or whatever, but it does not take weeks and months. That is not the case, where the person's suffering is such that they die hundreds upon hundreds, thousands upon thousands. That is not the way to stop things. That in the meantime, we're walking in the streets and shouting and holding banners up and so on. This is not from the Deen. And when something does change, it's because from Allah's decree. So we are still accountable, even if we think that we're doing something by these appeals and so on. Yes, it may make people feel better in some way, but that's just a psychological thing. The reality is that we need to stop this. We need to take stock of who and what we are, or who and what we've become. And we need to shed the non-Muslim ways of doing things. We need to adopt the Islamic way of doing things. But in order to do that, I guess, the change has to come from within. And when that happens, then these things will come into place. There are specific ways to do things, and we need to unite. That's one of the main things that we need to do outside, externally as a people. We need to unite together, and we need the scholars, the shuyukh, to come together and to exact the response of the Shari Hukum upon us, which is not to make appeals in the streets and so on. We know what the answer is. The answer is for us to struggle, to do mujahada, and go and do what needs to be done to alleviate the suffering of those who are suffering. These appeals and these courts and these other things are not doing that. In the meantime, people are still suffering and will continue to suffer. Their anguish is unbearable. As for these people that we appeal to, it was they who caused the situation. It is they who caused the problems. So why would they change them? Why would they stop them? And if they ever did, it's because of some other benefit that's come to them. That's why. Nothing to do with us, our appeals and our protests and our numbers. That doesn't frighten them. What gets them is that if they feel that something is going to be taken away from them, they will do something to keep that thing, even if it's something that we want. That is not Islam. Islam is that we do what is just and we remove what is unjust, whether it be a people, whether it be a system. For it is Allah Ta'ala who always has and always will resolve our trials. And we need to remember that. It is not these people. It is not to look to them. It is not to do their ways. Just as the Bani Israeel wanted the Sahaba to adopt the Torah and adopt the methods from the Torah, we today are adopting their methods without even having to be asked. Because we came to the West, we lived amongst them, we grew up amongst them, we started to respect their systems, and we forgot our own systems. We forgot our own ways. So in effect, each one of us needs to reform, and thereafter together we need to enact what has been told to us by Allah Ta'ala. That is what we need. Each one of us individually needs to reassess our deen and to re-encourage ourselves to return to our deen and to bring it back in our hearts, in our minds, to live our Islam, not just to speak our Islam. Islam itself is not a slogan, which many of us made in that in itself is a Western system to make slogans out of things. Islam is not slogans. Islam is a way of life because slogans can be lies. You can speak them and shout them in the streets, but you do not have to necessarily live by them. But that's not the way of Islam. That's not the way of Islam. The way of Islam is such that what we do is we do not have slogans. We have facts. We have statements. We have that our word is our bond. And we are applying that in the situations around us. So in order to do that, we have to have the deen in our hearts. We have to have the deen in our souls. We have to live our Islam. We have to stop the slogans. We have to stop all these Western ways of even our own deen. That is not the way. We need to make the change obvious within and without of us. We need to change our clothing. We need to change our state. We need to change our appearances to look like a Muslim should look. And that will come when the internal change is happening. And that happens, then the next step is then to unite, to come together. We need to drop and dispel our petty differences, whether they're cultural, whether they're between races, whether they're family feuds, whether they're tribal, whatever. We need to drop all of that. And we need to unite together. And we need to make this happen, even if it happens step by step, even within countries. If all the different Muslim countries united under their own leaders and the leaders became righteous, and then those leaders became united together, and then the Ummah will become united together, then we are ready. Then we are ready, and things can happen. And this is also symbolic in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that the Mahdi will come and he will lead us. That Isa alayhi salam come and he will be our guide. Why Isa alayhi salam? A prophet, and a prophet of what they call in the Christian world a man of the cloth. A person, a prophet that was so anti-materialism, because that is one of our problems. We become so materialistic that we need a prophet who was so anti-material, who did not have a home. He did not have a house where he lived. They say about him that he lay down his head whenever the night came upon him, meaning wherever he was, he would just sleep there on the hillside, or if somebody gave him a place to sleep, he would sleep there. If not, he would sleep out under a tree or something. He did not have a house. He didn't have a conveyance. He didn't have a horse. He was so unmaterialistic. And that's why we need him, because he is the one that's going to show us, reflect us the way we are in our materialism. And as for the Mahdi represents that we need to come together under one leadership based upon deen. Mahdi, word itself means guided by Allah upon hidayah. Hidayah from where? The Quran. This is the book in which there is no doubt hidayah, hudan lil muttaqin, the guidance for the muttaqin. So when we become muttaqi, the Quran will become hidayah, and the Mahdi will become our ruler who is himself guided. That's why each and every single one of us, we look at what is our responsibility, what can we do for the people in Gaza and so on. This is what we can do. We can change ourselves, because the more of us change, the quicker there comes the change from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the khilafah of the deen will return, and justice will be there for all people, for all people. But we need each one of us to do that. And while we're on that, not everybody has the responsibility to go out there and fight and do what we need to do in that respect. No, each of us is in a different capacity, and it's the capacity you're in as to whether it's an obligation upon you to do that. So we should not feel depressed, disillusioned with what's going on. Yes, it hurts, and that's good. It's good to feel that hurt, but we should not become despondent. Many people will stop praying, will stop believing. This is not the right way. That's a shaitani waswasa. What you have to do is understand that, yes, this is not my place. My place is not to go over there physically and do anything physically. That is not my place. I'm not able to do that. That is not the situation Allah Ta'ala has put me in. But the situation He has put me in, and in fact everybody, which everybody can do, is our own spiritual tazkiyah, that we all become something connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we become like that, when we become like the salaf, when we become like the salaf, then we become unstoppable. That is what we can all do. Each one of us individually can change our ways, our lives, reflect upon ourselves, look at ourselves in the spiritual mirror, take a look at our state, even in the physical mirror, and know what needs to be changed. And then, inshallah, we will be different. But adopting their ways and doing their things is just being within their system, and they know how to control their system. They gave us these ways. They gave us protests. They gave us appeals. They gave us all these sorts of things because they know that this just wastes your time and your energy. It will do nothing, and in the meantime, they can get away with what they want to do. The only answer has been the answer of Islam all along, which is mujahada. Mujahada has been the answer all along. There is no other way. And until that happens, and that is what will happen when the Mahdi arrives and Isa arrives, what is the first things they will be doing? They will be in Syria, in Damascus. What is it that they'll be involved in? Will they be involved in fasting, in praying, in giving zakah? No, they'll be involved in qital. They'll be involved in battle, and that will be the way forward. And that is the only language they understand who are causing the oppression in the world. That is their language. Oppression, might. That's their language. So you have to speak their language back to them. Mujahada is the answer, as it's always been. But the first mujahada begins with ourselves, our own spiritual and emotional and mental state. That is the first mujahada. And then the mujahada on the outside, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand and benefit from this, inshallah.